Join us for our 10th anniversary celebration during our 2025 Sedona Ascension Retreat, celebrating a new humanity uniting and a new earth arising, featuring the world's most renowned spiritual teachers, best-selling authors, and award-winning performers. Just visit SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. Welcome to the 2024 Sedona Ascension Retreat, Accelerating Consciousness. Presenting investigative mythologist, TV presenter, best-selling author, and ascension expert, William Henry.
He's really bridging a kind of older, what do they call it, Gnostic spirituality to the modern day and taking it to the next level. That's what I like about William. And he's so pure, and he's so, he understands the impact modern technology can have on consciousness. It's trying to show us that there's a greater way that we have inside of us. Our biology is a much more complete technology than anything we're going to get from Facebook or any of those things. So, yeah, here we are, soul transfiguration. I'm excited about this. And
Me too.
Yeah, do you want to read a bio?
Yeah, William Henry is a Nashville-based... Oh, that's not true anymore. William Henry is a Phoenix-based author.
Yes.
Woohoo! Neighbor, investigative mythologist, art historian, and TV presenter. He's an internationally recognized authority on human spiritual potential, transformation, and ascension. He has a unique ability to incorporate historical, religious, spiritual, scientific, archaeological, and other forms of such knowledge into factually based theories and conclusions that provide the layperson with a more in-depth understanding of the profound shift we are actually experiencing in our lifetime. The spiritual voice and consulting producer of the History Channel program, Ancient Aliens, and host of the Gaia TV series Ascension Keepers, The Awakened Soul, The Lost Science of Ascension, and Arcanum. William Henry is your guide into the transformative sacred science of human ascension. William also guides remarkable journeys into sacred sites. He is respected and admired around the world for dedicating his life to the awakening and ascension of humanity.
Right, so are you ready for your soul transfiguration? Let's bring on William Henry. Come on. Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm thrilled to be here and want to give just our props to Suzanne, too, for all of her work and what she's put together for us here. Beautiful, beautiful weekend. So, yes, soul transfiguration from star seed to star walker. We've all heard the term star seed. You know, I'm sure it was coined by Timothy Leary. 1972, he, of all things, was in jail in Folsom, California. He was in prison for having a quarter ounce of marijuana. Things have changed, right? And so he's in his jail cell, and he starts channeling, really, gets a download that our DNA was somehow tweaked by beings from Sirius. And he doesn't realize at the time that he's talking straight up ancient Egyptian belief. This is exactly what the ancient Egyptians taught. And of course, a few years later, Rod Steiger picks up the term starseed, and it now enters our vernacular as a term for anyone that has a connection to other star systems, believes they might be a hybrid being who is a product of a merger of humans and some extraterrestrial civilization, or in fact, more broadly speaking, anybody who has an interest in this whole idea of what we call ascension. But the fact of the matter is that before Tim Leary, you can go back to the Cathars in southern France in 1200 AD. You can go back to, of course, the Essenes, Jewish mystics, the faith of the mustard seed. That is straight up starseed metaphysics that Jesus is referring to, and this seed of the soul that's within us. Bashar did a beautiful explication of it last evening. That's straight up Gnosticism that Bashar was speaking. And it's possible that the Essenes were somehow connected with the Sasani that Bashar is representative of. But before that, it's the Greeks. Stoics talked all about this idea of the star seed within us, and that it manifests our physical body as a vehicle for incarnation and exploration, to work out karma, eat chocolate, have sex, all the things we do when we have a physical body, right? But before the Greeks, of course, the Greeks got all their stuff from the Egyptians. So now we're back to ancient Egypt again, and this foundational idea of the star seed. But what's happening now, at least in my observation, is that we are now starting to take a more active approach to our ascension. The seed idea encodes within the idea of potential, the possibility of the acorn becoming the oak, even though the acorn looks nothing like the oak. The same thing is told of us about our own light body, that we have encoded within our DNA the ability to manifest a light body, a rainbow light body, as the Tibetans described it, that's similar to our physical flesh and blood body, but is a celestial body, capable of opening portals and traveling to other worlds, healing ourselves and other people. And this is what I'm talking about this morning, is shifting our identification, the energy, just a bit away from the inert potential of the star seed into the active star walker. And so we'll talk about where that idea came from as we go. But to introduce, let's bring in this quote by Rumi, who said that as you start to walk on the way appears. And that, I think, is such a vital part of the star walking message, that it's about trust, it's about stepping out, it's about just embracing our true selves. So let's go forward here. Our mission is soul transfiguration in this realm. I wanted to mention that since 2002, as Alan had mentioned, I've been writing about AI, human transformation, spiritual potential, these sorts of things. And I come to the conclusion that attaining or raising our ascension intelligence is the antidote to artificial intelligence. This is the way, thank you, this is the way we're going to move forward. And I just wanted to refer you to a free download on my website, williamhenry.net, a book I wrote. This is actually from 2014, so it's the 10-year anniversary of The Singularity is Near, that lays out some of the ideas we'll be talking about this morning, but also is a useful guide if you're at all concerned about what's happening with AI and transhumanism. And the vital message here within Singularity, and really all of my work, is that this higher being, this star walker, is already within you. And our job is to set that part of ourself free. How do we do that? That is the question that so many of us want to know the answer to. And the answer for me, I just refer to Michelangelo, who said he would look at a block of stone and he would set the angel free. So that's the idea, is that we all have within us this angelic higher self, this ascended being, this star walker is within us, but it's clouded over by false perceptions, by focus on material concerns or other things that we spend our time with. And part of the objective here is to look at our life and think about, well, what can I let go that isn't reflective of my angelic star walker self? And once we start to release all of those things, what we're left with is our true self, our angelic self. And I just love this bronze sculpture by Bobby Carlyle. It's called Self-Made Man. And it sort of encapsulates this whole idea of transfiguration for me, of how we set the star walker within us free. It's already there. It's not something we go get. It's not something we become. It's something that we already are. And we have chosen to enjoy this physical reality, but at some point we start to raise our vibration, if you will, and the star walker then begins to emerge. We have tools that that can help us as well. And those tools are fundamental questions that all of us, I'm sure in this room, have at one time asked ourselves in one form or another. Who am I? Who am I? Where did I come from? What am I doing here? And when it's time for me to leave, where am I going and how am I going to get there? I like to say that we all have vacation plans, we have plans to come to Sedona. We have health plans, retirement plans. What is your ascension plan? Right? And how much time do we spend on that on a daily basis? It's our fundamental question for the next probably 10 million years. But yet we don't really focus on it enough. But we are now. This is part of the transformation of our culture. These questions are now becoming more apropos, and people are asking them and really digging deep into these questions and recognizing, hey, this whole ascension lifestyle or this ascension plan is available to all of us. It's been navigated before. You mentioned my series, Ascension Keepers. I looked at numerous beings, humans, mortal humans just like you and I, who rose out of their seat and ascended. They've set this plan out for us, and the afterlife realm has been navigated, it's well mapped, and we can now seriously begin to put forward some kind of a plan. The answers to some of these questions are complicated, but they should be really simple. It's like the ultimate law of physics. They believe it's going to be reduced to a 1-inch equation. Right now, it would cover this entire screen here. But fundamentally, the answers should be pretty simple. We could probably write the answers to all the questions I just asked in a single sentence if we reduce the complicated aspects of it. And this is what we're trying to get to, because just asking the question starts to trigger this aspect of ourselves, the fundamental aspects of spiritual transformation. That it's just suddenly we're in a different realm just by virtue of asking these questions that we're talking about this morning. And ultimately, what we're looking for in the ascension process is not to, some beam me up Scotty moment. That's called rapture. That's a Christian concept. And that's a revolution in the ascension thinking that had been going on for thousands of years. And mind you, we are part of a lineage. Every one of us is part of a lineage that goes back at least 7, 10, maybe 14,000 years, maybe even longer than that. And as a historian, when you study ascension as a process that has been unfolding for literally millennia, we recognize that we are the ones who will carry this forward. We are the ones who will set up the ascension process for all of future humanity. Hence my concern about AI and transhumanism. But the way I define ascension is that it's more a quest not for rapture and to literally go somewhere. It's rather to attain a greater sense of wholeness, holiness, and the word the Essenes would have used is perfection, which to them meant to be more compassionate. So wholeness, holiness, compassion are really the vibrations of ascension. This is what we are all seeking, and all of us are capable of most certainly becoming more whole, more holy, and indeed more compassionate. But I want to keep just for a moment here on the ancient Egyptian understanding or belief that we are star walkers. The ancient Egyptians believed firmly, and this is their whole sacred science, all of those temples, every one of them was based on or focused on this idea that we're going to be talking about. The idea that the soul of the deceased came to reside in the heavens as a star. They believed that we are literally star souls and that our souls become stars in the afterlife. And if the soul passed all the tests that it would encounter in what they called the duat or the netherworld, it would then go to reside in the heavens as a star. This is such a powerful idea because it's really the origin of the metaphysical concept, call it New Age if you like, that you are a soul who manifested a human body. You are not your body, you are a soul. Your soul is star stuff, so is your body. Every molecule, every atom in your body is a resurrected star. And one day our star, our sun, will go supernova, and we will become then the material for future bodies. You're presently resting on a rock that's way out here on the Orion arm of our Milky Way galaxy. You're out here, and all the good stuff you want is in the galactic center. But there's no bridge, there's no rope, there's no ladder, there's no apparent way to get to that galactic center. But now we've changed our thinking about this, and we know that there are stargates, portals, wormholes. There's transfiguration processes that we can undergo. There are contact modalities that we can access that can connect us with these higher beings, the light beings in the galactic center. And we're presently traveling through space. Our sun and solar system are making a loop of that galactic center. It takes 230 million years approximately, but we are moving through this massive galactic disk. And then did you know that just 100 years ago, when we looked up into the night sky, we thought that the stars that we see were all that is. We thought that there was one galaxy in the universe, our Milky Way. Now they estimate there could be as many as 1 trillion galaxies in the known universe. That's just 100 years of opening a window. Think about that when you're asking the question, where did I come from? What am I doing here? And where am I going from here? There's a vast array of tours you can take out there. Okay? About 1 trillion different galaxies in the known universe. That's not even including the multiverse. Back in the early 90s, I was inspired by an Egyptologist and mathematician named Dr. Charles Muses. He had proposed that the Egyptians, particularly the god Ptah, who the Egyptians said came from Sirius and fashioned the human body, had developed a technology in which tones, lights, and plants, tones, like sound, lights from stars, and plants, as in entheogenic plants, hallucinogenic plants, could be used to open an to trigger the large production of large pulses of hormones similar to the X-dysone produced by larval forms of insects, which allows the adult form to emerge. In this way, they would allow the gestation or mutation of a non-molecular body, a new skin that would allow the survival of consciousness beyond the physical death. So what he's saying here is that the whole Egyptian sacred science is based on this idea is that you can, through tones, lights, and plants, make a copy of yourself, deposit your consciousness into that copy, beam yourself to another location throughout the universe, phase back into a physical flesh and blood body if you choose to. And the reason why you would do that is so that you could then exude more compassion than in a light body. And that this is how they traveled the cosmos. Now, you think about this, and this is exactly what transhumanism is proposing today, that we can create cartoon avatars of ourselves, upload our consciousness into that avatar, and live forever in a simulated reality in some black box somewhere. That's not what we want. This is the ascension process that we're looking for, to recover this original sacred science of the Egyptians. As Dr. Muses continues, he tells us that the principal agent of this transformation was a divine food, a star food, angel food, like manna in the Old Testament. It comes out of the Milky Way galaxy periodically. And which this divine food, he said, like some super royal jelly could do for bees, would stimulate metamorphic neurosecretory organs, your pineal gland, your pituitary, your hypothalamus, and in the human central nervous system, and enable a super biological process to take place to mature a higher body, a light body, that can transcend death and is capable of furnishing a sensorium to perceive and function in a world freer than the transient three-dimensional one in which we presently are confined. And this was the ageless promise of ancient Egypt. This science, this technology was brought to Earth by the Star Walkers, including Ptah and others. And it informs us of exactly the possibilities of what your soul has manifested for you. We identify it as a human body. To them, it's similar to the caterpillar morphing into the butterfly. And that is part and parcel of the whole process of ascension. This process requires that we make contact with those celestial beings who have already accomplished this. They are waiting for you to be like Thanksgiving morning when the thermometer pops out of the turkey or the light bulb is screwed in properly and the light goes off. They are here to assist us in this transformation. Our job is to learn enough about this process so that we can help them to complete it. And so as Muses continues, he says, all this brings us to a key point in ancient Egyptian ethnobotany, that is, ingestion of the sacred material was designed not merely to give a high. It's hallucinogenic, there's no question about that, but it wasn't a party drug. It was all about connection and contact with higher celestial beings, and that this would then trigger and impel the metamorphic process leading to a theurgic transmutation of human nature into apotheosis. Those are big words. Basically, what they're talking about here is activating the latent capabilities of your body. Is anybody here at all interested in any healing processes? Okay. Is anybody here at all interested in entheogens or hallucinogens? Is anybody here interested in ascension? Okay. This is your North Star right here. The tones, lights, and plants is the North Star in this process. This is what you are actually going for. And as you begin to tune your consciousness to this, what might seem a more far out or a higher concept, suddenly you're up leveling every aspect of all of the divine work that you're doing. In fact, that is the meaning of the word theurgy that he used here, divine work. Apotheosis means to transform a human into a divine being. So this path that we're all on has been well mapped. The science is established, and what we are doing today is recovering it. And this is what is so profoundly important about our time. So if you're in the Egyptian temples with me or in the museums, I'm going to be pointing out to you all of these examples that the Egyptians left for us of star walkers, of ordinary people that went through this process and literally connected themselves to other star civilizations and then ultimately could travel to those other civilizations. Now, the thing is that if you're going to be traveling to these other star systems, into the heavenly realms, the celestial realms, you need to be dressed appropriately. You need to be wearing your light body, your robe or garment of light. And again, this was firmly established first by the ancient Egyptians, who said that in states of great love and inspiration, a window can open within, and a light from a higher reality shines in. We call that 5D today. The ancient Egyptians called it the dimension of the blessed. It's the kingdom of heaven in Christianity. And actually, it was the Christians who originated the idea of a new heaven and a new earth. We've just kind of taken out the Christian vernacular and agreed that it's 3D, 4D, 5D that we're talking about. But it's really has this ancient lineage that's very important, I think, to acknowledge. The plant, the sacred plant, the divine food, opened the valve within your neurosecretory system, which you can do not just with plants, you can do it with breathing techniques, through meditation and other means. But the ancient Egyptians were really interested in going the fastest and direct route, so they used the plants, and that this divine food opened the window but still left control with the aspirant. And this is really key because they're not just getting high, they're interested in opening this window and existing in a higher plane of existence where they're in contact with these celestial star walkers. This allowed the subject a clearer than usual mind with deepened insight. And then this brings one to the point where one would live normally in a higher state of awareness. And this is the heavy lifting that we've all been doing since, at least the 90s, maybe, of course, before. There's a lot of first wavers here from the 70s and 80s. I'm from the 90s. And then there's others that have come in the early 2000s and the 2010s. And now we're in the 20s. And so what we've been building here is a wave so that all of this becomes just normal. This isn't weird. This is the normal world that we're talking about here. Somehow in the past few thousand years, we've been living in this dark age, perhaps due to the yugas or whatever reasons, but now we are coming back into the light, and now we need the tools. Now we need the tones, lights, and plants, the breathing techniques, the meditations, and other things that are helping to activate this. As Dr. Muses observed, we see 3 beams of light coming out of the star in the top left. This is star power energy that's entering the forehead of King Tutankhamun in this example here. So he's connecting with the stellar realms, the star Sirius, and the beings from there. They're sending this light energy into his third eye, activating his neurosecretory system, and now he's producing what the ancient Egyptians called the Krast garment. It's spelled K-R-A-S-T, but when I lived in Nashville, people said they used to go to the Church of Christ, and and little did they know they're using an ancient Egyptian term for the light body. In fact, it's the original term for the light body. And then the Sumerians come along with the Anunnaki, and they call it the Malamu. There's a whole history of that I've tracked for this past decade or so. But the idea is that we need these tones, lights, and plants ultimately to manifest the proper clothing, the light body, in order to become star walkers. And in fact, as Muse has pointed out, within this image here, which is on one of the shrines of King Tutankhamun, we see both the symbol of the star And the word Saba, or star, by the way, to the Egyptians also means door. And with the determinative for walking, just beside Tutankhamun, he surmised that the Tutankhamun is getting ready to walk through a star door. He's a star walker walking through a star door. But how about he's walking through a star gate? That kind of brings it into our vernacular so we understand that. And what we're seeing here, once again, is the very important linkage to the ancient world and the recognition, again, that we are part of this lineage. And this is the work that I've been doing. And now I'm going to advance it by moving more into out of the star seed into the star walker vernacular. And the way this happened for me, I was in one of those really profound, life-changing journey meditations. My heart is wide open. My neurosecretory system is producing bliss hormones. It's producing dimethyltryptamine. All of a sudden, my consciousness is just blown wide open. I have that clarity and that state of love that's being described here. And I find myself in what I perceive as an ancient Egyptian temple. I recognize it as something like the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, the temple of the goddess of love and joy, but it's so much more magnificent than anything I'd ever seen in Egypt. And I'm realizing this is the prototype. What we see here and what we experience on Earth is just a tiny fraction of the original. And here I am just in this massive Egyptian temple. And over here I see this giant throne, this Egyptian ascension throne. And I know that's what it is because I've spent 20 years studying those thrones. And they're usually feathered because they fly. They're the ascension vehicles of the deities and also humans. But this throne is purple and it's filled with stars. And I'm like, of course it's the throne filled with stars. It's their star throne. This is their celestial vehicle. And all of a sudden there's a mermaid tail on the throne. And it's feminine. It's beautiful. It's iridescent. It's like peacock colored. It's just mesmerizing. And there's a female voice. And she says, William, your work in ancient Egypt with the star boats is beautiful. And I'm like, oh, wow, well, thank you. And she's like, no, it's really beautiful. And I'm like, well, thank you. You know, and I'm talking to a mermaid. And she's telling me my work in ancient Egypt with the star boats is beautiful. And then she goes, you know that image you've been trying to get for years in the Cairo Museum? And I'm like, yeah, how do you know about that? And she says, that image of the Star Walker on that sarcophagus, she says, that's you. And I said, yeah, I identify with that. I've spent my whole life, my adult life, since I was 20, studying all this. She says, no, that's you. And right then, this whole download comes with this. And I recognize that I've got to go back to the Cairo Museum, which is this like cacophony of just a blitz, if you will, of all these artifacts. And it's so easy to blow by this sarcophagus. It actually belonged to Meron Ptah, one of the sons of Ramses the Great. And I've tried for years, a decade, to upgrade my camera, get a better angle, try to get into this sarcophagus so I can get this image. And the image isn't of Nut. This is the goddess Nut. She symbolizes the Milky Way. Her body's filled with stars. And as we'll talk in a moment, the Egyptians believe, yeah, we're all star walkers and we all walk the Milky Way. And so here's Nut with her body covered with stars. And what we see are these boats. These are the boats that this mermaid was talking about. The Egyptians called it the Ark of the Millions of Years, or the Ship of Eternity. And our quest as star walkers is to hitch a ride on one of these boats. And so I'm trying to get in here. I finally do this contortionist act, and there is the image right there. The star walker on the boat with his staff holding the star, okay? Last night, I just couldn't believe it when Daryl Anka was channeling Bashar, and I was sitting right over there, and he goes, okay, so you're a 3D human who can call down the 5D stars and bring in the 4D world. And when he did this, I'm like, that's my star walker. I know exactly what he's talking about. This is a 3D human who's calling in divine energy symbolized by the star, the 5D world, and manifests this arc of the millions of years. So this is me, but it's also you. We're all star walkers. And in our ascension, we need to call in that divine energy of the stars. We need that magic staff, and we also need the boat. And that is entirely what my work is devoted to. And so when she's saying your work with those star boats is beautiful, she's referring actually to this image, because what had happened in my course of investigation back in the late 90s, I know some of you weren't even around in the late 90s, so forgive me if I sound old, but in the late 90s, I first saw a photo of this. It was actually taken by Graham Hancock's wife, Santha. And I looked at that and I said, okay, this is Orion on the arc of the millions of years traveling towards Orion. And the way the ancient Egyptians portrayed that ship, in my imagination, matched exactly the way modern science portrays a wormhole. This was a revelation. This was like Robert Bauval or Dr. Hertog looking at the three belt stars of Orion and recognizing that the three pyramids are a mirror image of it, as above, so below. And this is the same kind of linkage here. It's like, wait a minute. These are Stargate traveling time travelers we're talking about here. There is a whole new physics that's encoded within these images that we've yet to ascertain. And so over the course of the years, of course, Ancient Aliens, we've done a number of episodes about this. It's become part of the vernacular now, that when people go to Dendera, yeah, there's the star walkers on the wormhole-shaped boat. And we recognize that this is all part of the ascension process. But really, in our vernacular, what it has to do with is, again, bring in the 5D world as a 3D being, and this manifests the 4D world, because in our 3D world, the wormhole is impossible. This is the symbol for the impossible in our world. We can't go from point A to point B with nothing in between. Want to bet? We can now, because we're entering into a new consciousness. And this is what the symbol of the lotus actually represents, is instant manifestation out of nothingness. And so the ancient Egyptians, in a temple that was brand new at the time of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, had already known this, and they left it encoded in the temple walls for us to ultimately reveal. I personally believe, as a symbolist, that this U-shaped symbol of the wormhole is the uber symbol. All symbols ultimately drop out of this wormhole symbol. And the reason why I make that claim is because it represents our life process. We all experienced a birth in this realm, which I hope was an ascension, right? Compared to where you were before this life, you're now in this life, and this should be an ascended experience for you. I hope you just want to take a moment to acknowledge that you worked to get here, and there's a purpose in your current existence. So you experienced a birth or an ascension. Now we're in the throat of the wormhole. We've come through the mouth. We're in the throat of the wormhole. We call that life. This is our life. We're all traveling on this boat. And then ultimately, all of us will experience a death and another ascension. Okay? It never ends is part of the message here. So we all have this inhuman past. I don't know where you came from. I'm learning about where I came from. We're all experience our life or a present, and of course we acknowledge that life is a precious gift, and ultimately we'll experience a future or a resurrection. But what wormhole physics tells us is there is no past and there is no future. It's just all the same thing. And that represents now a flip in our consciousness, that we can access other worlds. We can make contact with beings in the past and the future. We can ultimately remember our own past and our own future, and we can make magical things happen through a wormhole or a 4D type of a consciousness. Painters and visionaries who have opened the mind's eye, probably through plants in some cases, I'm quite sure, have glimpsed this boat of eternity. Walter Crane is one of them. My Soul is an Enchanted Boat is the title of this painting. And it's obviously a riff on ancient Egyptian star walker metaphysics. And it may be observed that the most successful of these artists are those who saw what's called the ferryman on the boat and recognized that that is in fact our higher self. The navigator on the boat, the being on the boat, that's you. That's you. And what we're all in the process of doing here is gathering the tools that we need. Our stick, our boat, the divine energy, These are part and parcel of all of our ascension process, and it's our higher self, our guardian angel, our true self, that is putting all these pieces together for us. So it's tremendously exciting when we go back to the ancient Egyptians to reveal their sacred science. And I'm going to have to step back over here because our clicker just suddenly stopped working. So maybe I've said enough? There we go. So to the ancient Egyptians, the Nile was a mirror image of the heavenly Nile, as above, so below, once again. And the heavenly Nile, of course, is the Milky Way galaxy, which they refer to as the winding waterway. And they were very well familiar with all of the different star systems and beings coming and going from these various star systems, and had an intuitive knowledge as well as a scientific knowledge brought to Earth by those who had already been navigating the winding waterway of the Milky Way. The Nile also symbolized the afterlife, and the ancient Egyptians believed that just souls, as I said, came to reside in the heavens as a star. Everything in ancient Egypt is relative to this transfiguration and this transmutation. And so when we look at the arcing image of the Milky Way, we want to look at it as the ancient Egyptians did. This is the goddess Nut, whose body is filled with stars, and we're all children of this great goddess, and we one day will return to the Milky Way. In fact, we're in the process of doing so. And just to share a few more images from ancient Egypt, this is in the tomb of King Seti, on the ceiling of his tomb, where we see the Neter, the divine beings, the heavenly ones, the star walkers coming into the earth plane, and they're riding upon their celestial boats, the Ark of the Millions of Years, or the Ship of Eternity, which, as I had said a moment ago, I believe is also actually a wormhole. It was Dr. Murray Hope who wrote about ancient Egyptian belief in Sirius that said that Isis appears to draw power from the star Sirius, and Orion rides upon the ship of the gods. He holds the key of life in front of him, and the Uaz scepter, the magic staff, if you will, that is facing Isis. The great French symbolist Schwaller de Lubitz had commented on this, saying that Orion offers the life that he draws from Sirius, and the meaning is pretty straightforward. The Uaz scepter conducts a stream of energy, light particles from Sirius, and this energy seems to connect us to higher planes of consciousness. And so the question is, well, where can I get one of these Uaz scepters, one of these magic staffs, right? Maybe a vendor outside here will have one next time we come next year. Here's your Uaz scepter. But it's really clear that, to Schwaller anyway, and he was a hermeticist and alchemist, of course, and he described this as a cane. Now that's interesting in light of plants, because whenever you see a reference to cane in the ancient texts, it's a reference to cannabis, which was a huge part of the ascension consciousness of the ancients. But it also clearly resembles a tuning fork. So when you look at the bottom of it, you see that, okay, we're talking about a staff here that is also a tuning fork. It could also be cannabis. Tones, lights, and plants is our formula that we're looking to put together here. And so it makes sense that we're seeing this all come together in a single symbol. In particular, Schwaller notes, it pertains to a living branch conducting the unmanifest vivifying sap or nourishing sap. And this sap, he says, is resonant with the Christian word, the life force energy upon which the world is built. We're getting into a really deep metaphysical concept here that ties together the ancient Egyptians, the Jewish mystics, the Christian mystics, this idea of the word, the life force energy, and how we become tuners for that life force energy. And that's a really magnificent part of all of these ancient ascension teachings. And Schwaller then goes on to say its meaning is straightforward, that here the Star Walker is drawing down this universal energy, which is described as a sap, a substance that is, in fact, is probably actually secreted from within us. And I say that because when you look at the ancient Egyptian temple walls, this is King Seti standing before Osiris in his crossed garment, and you notice he's got the cane running the full length of his body. The reason why the ancient Egyptian artist did that is because he's trying to convey a message to us that this magic stick that we're looking for, that's our spinal cord system. Our spinal cord system is this magic tuner that we're seeking. It's also capable of manifesting the vivifying sap, or this super fluid, if you will, that can heal the body, that can awaken our neurosecretory system, and ultimately can transmute the body. So again, thinking about Bashar's talk last night, my logo, the Star Walker, is a being, a 3D being, portrayed bringing down a 5D energy that lifts you into the fourth dimension. And something I want to add to what he was saying last night in terms of that formula, all about excitement, is that, hey, we really do need a boat right now, in my opinion, and not to go fear-based or anything, but there's some weird stuff going on in our world. And we are slightly akin to what was going on in Noah's time, when all kinds of really powerful things were about to happen, and Noah was encouraged to build a boat. And I'm encouraging you to build a boat also. I'm encouraging you not to build a wooden ark, but to build a boat of consciousness that can help you to rise above the challenging rising waters in our world, and to show others the way, to create a safe platform for your loved ones. This is a really important part of the ascension process, is we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for everyone, for all of our loved ones, in fact, all of the human race. So this idea of the boat of the millions of years is something I want you to perhaps take on board and contemplate and meditate on, and maybe start to look a little more deeply at ancient portals, wormholes, stargates, and what's going on presently with our wormhole science. We're literally creating simulated wormholes in quantum computers. We literally are, from a scientific perspective, shifting out of 3D into 4D, maybe even to 5D, to use that vernacular. I prefer the way the ancient Egyptians characterized it. We're entering the dimension of the blessed. We're entering the dimensions of the blessed. We are star walkers entering a blessed frequency, vibration, and world that will result in contact with otherworldly beings, as well as the transformation of our world. And something that I think is very important, at least what I strive to do in my own work, is to look for evidence of this teaching in other traditions.
Join us for our 10th anniversary celebration during our 2025 Sedona Ascension Retreat, celebrating a new humanity uniting and a new earth arising, featuring the world's most renowned spiritual teachers, best-selling authors, and award-winning performers. Our retreat includes a dozen indoor workshops and 8 outdoor journeys into Sedona's vortex sites, as well as a Native American performance by world champions, the Sinqua family. Enjoy on-stage presentations.
All crystallized seed at the center of that orb of light is your physical mind.
So today we'll be talking about religion versus spirituality, because I think there needs to be a clear line drawn between the two to get a better understanding.
This path that we're all on has been well mapped. The science is established, and what we are doing today is recovering.
Because there's going to be such higher states of consciousness on the planet, such an influx of energy, people will start getting activated. And you will have atheists that suddenly see angels.
The greatest gift you can offer. I am your host, Suzanne Ross, and I invite you to join us for our 10th anniversary celebration. Just visit SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. Reserve your seats today. I'll see you in Sedona.
I love every single one of you with all of my heart. I mean it. I mean it. I love you and you and you and you and you and you and you. Thank you so much.
One of my specialties is I I call it playing tic-tac-toe between the ancient Egyptian, the early Christian, which is actually Jewish mystical tradition, and the Buddhist tradition. And when you start to interchange those traditions, you find some extraordinary correspondences. For example, in Buddhist theology, Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, is sometimes depicted as the captain of the bark of salvation. Well, wait a minute. The bark of salvation, that's the Egyptian Ark of the Millions of Years. That means Kuan Yin is resonant with Captain Orion to the ancient Egyptians. And they're both talking about an ark or a bark or a boat of salvation. And what Kuan Yin would do, this goddess of compassion, she would guide souls to the pure land of the Amitabha Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light. And this was the goal of all Buddhist teaching, and what they refer to as, of course, their enlightenment and perfection teachings. And the journey to the Pure Land is frequently represented in woodcuts showing boats full of Amitabha's followers under Kuan Yin's captainship. So here we see a perfect tie-in with what we see between Captain Orion in the ancient Egyptian tradition and Kuan Yin in the Buddhist tradition. And so just pausing for a moment to analyze this image, we see Kuan Yin as this luminous or radiant being. She's wearing her radiant garment of light, and she's on a cloud, which is actually a ship. Now remember, when Jesus ascended, he also rose upon a cloud. And it's not a literal cloud, it's a symbol for a light vehicle. And this is how Kuan Yin is coming and going. And then we see two priestesses down just beneath that cloud that Kuan Yin's riding on. And what we see is they are holding lotuses in their hand. That's exactly the same as the ancient Egyptian lotus that is at the either end of the Ark of the Millions of Years. Because the lotus is the symbol for manifestation out of nothing, but it's also the symbol for a transportation vehicle, an interdimensional transportation vehicle utilized by the ancient Egyptian gods, and most certainly in 600 BC by the Buddhist deities as well. Kuan Yin, Amitabha Buddha, and others travel via the lotus. So in the detail here, you can see this priestess offering this lotus blossom, and it's being offered to you at this moment. And this is why, of course, we have the 1,000-petaled lotus as the symbol for enlightenment. It's all about awakening our consciousness, and this is what I'm suggesting to you, is this is why an interest or a cursory understanding of what's happening with wormholes, stargates, and its impact on our consciousness is important at this time. So as we click through here, through the priestesses, we find another example here, Kuan Yin once again. This painting, this is the Bodhisattva Siddhigarbha or Jizo. The Bodhisattvas, of course, are beings I know many of you are familiar with. They have taken the Bodhisattva vow. Their mission is to incarnate on earth and to assist all humans in their ascension. And the Bodhisattvas won't leave until all humans who have chosen to go before them have left. So think about that kind of sincerity and that sort of integrity that is required to take that mission. But look at what's happening here with Jizo. He or she is descending to earth on a cloud, the cloud ship, to retrieve the soul of a suffering believer. He appears in the guise of a Buddhist monk carrying a wish-fulfilling jewel and a golden walking staff while standing on a cloud ship. Well, wait a minute. We've seen this collection of images before, haven't we? We've seen the staff, the Uaz scepter in the Egyptian depiction. We've seen the cloud ship, which is also akin to the lotus. And now we're adding another piece of symbolism here that's really quite profound, and that is the wish-fulfilling jewel. So here's the detail of the cloud ship, or the lotus blossom, which I would ask you to consider is actually the opening of the mouth of a wormhole. It's exactly what the Egyptians were showing. And this is showing us the method by which these bodhisattvas travel the universe. And then in his hand is this transparent orb called the wish-fulfilling gem. The Tibetan term for that is the Chintamani stone or Chintamani stone. They call it the wish-fulfilling gem because it's made of consciousness. And if you have activated your neurosecretory system, your pineal pituitary hypothalamus, you're able to instantly manifest your wishes. That's a capability that all 4D beings possess, okay? And most certainly 5D beings as well. And so we're seeing here in this Buddhist image a beautiful open eye meditation that you can use. That as you contemplate, meditate, and reflect on this image, you're literally making or identifying this wish-fulfilling gem. And this is, to me, a perfect correspondence with what we see with the Egyptian star walker. Jizo is riding upon the cloud ship, just like the star walker is on the Ark of the Millions of Years. They both hold the Uaz scepter, or the golden staff. And in the star, the fifth dimensional star energy that the star walker has brought down, has manifested now as the Chintamani wish-fulfilling gem in Buddhism. This is a direct crossover between these traditions, and it opens up avenues in your imagination, pathways for your research, for beings that you can call into your consciousness, make contact with, utilize as guides, and so forth. In Buddhism, this Chintamani is the pearl that, when held, grants all wishes. And wouldn't we all love to have one of those? Yeah, in a way. But also be careful, because if all your thoughts become instantly real, this is part of the promise of our time. I remember back in the early 90s having lunch with Greg Braden when he came to Nashville for the first time, saying, yeah, this acceleration is going to happen, and more our thoughts are going to become instantly real. And as we go through this process, the ascension process back in the 90s or so was, about this sort of a speed. If you think of it as a merry-go-round, you could just hop on and ride. And then we get into the late 90s. Then we get into the early 2000s. Then it's 2012, and now here we are. Was it about like this, do you think? Feel about right? Or is it more like that? Okay? Because next year it's going to be like, you won't even see it. Okay? This is the process, and it's happened. We've watched it unfold right before our eyes. We know this is happening. Okay? And this is why we want to be familiar with some of these ideas, because ultimately it's our thoughts that are our key to our ascension. And focusing on, of course, what it is that we do want, emphasis on love, is what manifests this jewel from within. And by the way, that Mani stone, the Chintamani stone, symbolizes Buddha and all Buddhist doctrine. And something very interesting that goes along with what the ancient Egyptians described about this process is that they said that this Chintamani stone was edible. It's edible, suggesting it could be a plant. It could also be what I described earlier as this sap, this mysterious sap the Mayans talked about. They called it eats. Remember back in 2012, they said, oh yeah, we're going to align with the center of the galaxy, and this mysterious substance is called eats is going to come out of a serpent rope, and it's going to expand our consciousness. I think they called it eats because they saw it and they ate it. It's eats, right? It's the same as the manna or star food of the Israelites. And this is something I want you to start thinking about and paying attention to, because this is part and parcel of what's happening right now with the psychedelic renaissance that's happening around the world. Millions of people are opening avenues in their consciousness through psychedelics, utilizing it for compassionate purposes to feel deep bliss and love. And Australia has deregulated some of these psychedelic substances. America, United States, it's going to be descheduled sometime, if not this year, next year. And what we're going to see as a result of this is a tsunami of compassion washing over our world. The reason why it's being deregulated is because it's a one-hit wonder for PTSD, for trauma, virtually instant healing of old traumas and things people carry along. And as millions and millions of people start to use these, on top of those that already are, it's going to open up a consciousness that we can't hardly even fathom yet. And it's going to enable more direct contact with these celestial beings. It's happening now, and in the next couple of years, it's going to even more dramatically alter our world. And once again, it's all for the purpose of activating our light body, making contact with these celestial beings, fulfilling our promise, if you will, as souls to be part of this lineage of ascension keepers that make ascension the base reality in our world, not something that could possibly happen that we strive for or a hope for future. It's something that is going to cause a flip in our world and will become the basis for future civilization. This is what you are doing at this moment. You are part of a magnificent tessellation of millions of souls that are around the world right now that are manifesting this new reality and making it present. I salute you because I know it's work, and I know the sacrifices some of you have made, but you are doing it, and you're doing it for the benefit of yourself, but all of future humanity. So once again, to play tic-tac-toe between the Egyptian and the Tibetan and Christian tradition, that wish-fulfilling orb is exactly what I identified in the hand of Salvator Mundi, the savior of the world, in Leonardo's painting. That transparent orb that he holds in his hand is the same thing as what the Buddhists called the Chintamani. And I believe Gurdjieff knew exactly what it was too when he said that real love is a cosmic force which goes through us. If we crystallize it, it becomes the greatest power in the world. So, yes, it's possible that this wish-fulfilling substance comes out of the Milky Way, as the Mayans proclaimed, but it's also possible that it comes out of people who have activated their magic staff, tuned into the Holy Spirit, the cosmic source energy, and activated their neurosecretory system, whether through tones, lights, and plants, or breathing techniques, or meditation. However you do it, we have the potential to manifest this real love and crystallize it in our world and utilize it for personal as well as planetary transformation. And this is what we see in these paintings, is that Jesus has demonstrated his ability to manifest this substance from within his consciousness and to perform miracles, to activate his own light body, and to transmit this message onto us. Here's ultimately what I think it is. Follow this video. Did you get that? The power of the universe is what we're talking about. And that's what's within our consciousness. That's what's within all of us. And that's what we're manifesting at this present time. And this is the message of the Star Walkers, is that we all have the ability to manifest this within us. This is our goal. This is our mission. This is what we are doing as souls on the planet at this time. If you want to know more about the process of doing that, I have a streaming video course called Halo, which is about the sacred secretion, the secret anointing oil, and the light body sacrament. It's about a 10-hour course. You can find it on my website, williamhenry.net, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. Because ultimately, this is how we manifest this light body, this vehicle that enables us to travel the stars. They call it the rainbow light body in the Tibetan tradition. And what they tell us is that by contemplating, meditating, and reflecting on images such as this, the guru Padmasambhava and his rainbow light body, that as an avatar, and you see his pineal gland marked here by the blue pearl, he has the ability to transmit the vibration of the rainbow light body through an image. So at this very moment, as I'm speaking with you, and this image is on the screen, Padmasambhava is present in the room with us. And he is transmitting the codes of the light body to you. Padmasambhava is another of the Tibetan Star Walkers. And this is a beautiful way for you to start to connect with some of these Star Walkers, is through these images. We now know the neuroscience of how a painting can get our neocortex, the neurons in our neocortex, to begin firing. We know that as an avatar, through quantum entanglement, he can transmit these codes of the awakening light body to us. So I encourage this as another tool, in addition to all the questions we asked earlier, of ways for you to connect with the Star Walkers, is through these images, be it the Bodhisattvas or Padmasambhava. And his mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, is a way of calling in the blessings of the light body and literally of activating it from within. Because what the Buddhists taught is the exact same thing that the Egyptians taught. And that is, this physical flesh and blood body that we walk around in is not our true self. Our true self is our rainbow light body. And this jewel that is shown in the hand of the Bodhisattvas and the jewel held in the hand of Christ, they call it Mani's jewel, is within you. It's within your pineal gland. It's not something you have to go get. It's something that you already are. It's something that you make or you identify. And the message here is that as we begin to more and more identify with this light body aspect of ourselves, the Star Walker, we begin to live our lives in a different way. We previously tend to focus on our material concerns, what we need on a day-to-day basis. As we connect with the Star Walkers, we start to think about our eternal being. We start to think about what would life be like if I'm living from this place of deep love and deep compassion. What new choices would I make in my life? What new avenues, what new pathways would I begin to follow? These are the questions that then lead us deep within and ultimately enable us to reflect more and more of our true self. And as we reflect more of our true self, this is when we begin to shine. We literally, the light begins to emerge from within us. It's not as if you're suddenly going to be zapped into some rapturous light body. It's something that's already within. It's just covered up. It's something you have to let out. And you let it out through daily actions, through your choices, through your decisions, and simply through your intentions to reveal this aspect of yourself and to live from this perspective. Now, something that really intrigued me is back in the early 2000s, after I started working with the ancient Egyptian star gates and Star Walker symbolism, I was led into the rainbow light body teachings. And I started studying these tankas of the guru Padmasambhava in his light body. And I started to notice that, wait a minute, he's sitting on a lotus throne. And he holds a resurrection stick in his hand. And he's got a crown of glory on. And he holds in his hand the Vajra, which is the Tibetan symbol for compassion and action. He's got luminous golden and rainbow rays coming off of his body. And I detected in the rim of that rainbow body a Stargate symbol. And I said, wait a minute, I've seen this collection of symbols before. I've seen it in ancient Egypt. And as I continued to study the rainbow light body tradition, I learned that this teaching is taught in 13 star systems, including our own, according to the Tibetans. And the Tibetans believe that there are star walkers coming and going from Sirius, Orion, the Pleiades, Cygnus, Cassiopeia, Lyra, Vega, Arcturus, Ursa Major, and other realms as well. And there's a group probably in Cygnus right now where a guy's standing up and talking to people about, hey, you can become a star walker too. It's happening throughout our galaxy. And the reason why it appears in the Tibetan tradition and the Christian tradition and the Egyptian tradition is because it doesn't belong to any of them, but yet it belongs to all of them. This is the universal cosmic teaching. It's not a religion. It's the original teaching that infiltrator found its way into all of these traditions, and they all ultimately reflect it. So the Star Walker tradition is the original spiritual tradition on Earth, but it didn't originate here. It was brought here from all these other star systems. Another Star Walker in Egypt, a Ptolemaic king, a human being, one of the rulers of ancient Egypt, wearing the crown of wisdom, on the lotus craft, with his feathered ascension throne, with his resurrection stick, the Uaz scepter, with the key of life. Those are the exact same symbols that we see in the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition. And again, it's because they are the same. They just use different names. But the intention, the teaching, the idea, the source is all the same. And what we are now doing is recognizing that for the first time, perhaps in many thousands of years. And that comes with it a tremendous sense of excitement to share this with you, but also ultimately to see what you do with it, okay? Because certainly what Jesus did with it is he manifested his own rainbow light body and showed us the way from the Christian perspective about how to do this. And this is an important part of this because, again, enfolded within us is this tremendous aspect of ourselves that sometimes goes unrecognized. We don't make it. We don't identify it. But we all know that we can become equal to the angels. We all know we're on the path of ascension. We all know that we can attain our light body. And I hope that what I've done this morning is to show you some of the ways that the ancients were doing it. And perhaps you haven't been familiar with the Tibetan concepts or the Egyptian or the Christian, but perhaps now you will look into those various traditions and we will begin to walk as children of light. which is what Jesus asked us to do. For you were once in darkness, but are now light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. And that is my final message, is that star seeds are beautiful ideas, but the star walker is the active aspect of all of these teachings. And when Jesus is saying walk as children of light, he's asking us to walk as he did, to take those actions, to walk in light, walk in love, walk in compassion. So I thank you very much for this time this morning. You've been a wonderful group, and I hope you enjoy your walk. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.